Hey everyone, it's Gavin Syme, and I just want to give a practical, informational update because a lot of people are wanting to know, well, what happened this week with this live stream? What went down? How did it work? What was involved? And so I want to share that real quick so that everybody out there can keep the message going, so that it can be repeated. Because there's a couple of things, that we need to correct. First of all, the FBI had nothing to do with peaceful resolution in this. People standing up, people getting the word out, patriots putting massive pressure. They were there for violence just like they always were. And so make no mistake, when that first night went down, the FBI negotiators were there trying to goad the patriots into violence. They wanted blood. They wanted to commit more murder, just like when they assassinated Lavoy Finicum, because they're criminals. And so let's not for a moment pretend that the FBI peacefully de-escalated this situation. Everything they've done from the beginning was about violence and criminal activity. And so now we have the federal government illegally occupying this refuge once again. But what's the message? How do the patriots get out safe? And how do we repeat things like that? Well, first of all, I'm going to give the credit where credit is due. The credit belongs to God, keeping the phone line working in an improbable situation, keeping the message going, the prayers out there from people. But rather than preach about that right now, I am going to talk a little bit about the practical aspects of what happened. So Nathan and I were just sitting in the studio, and I hadn't heard from David Fry in some days, and he calls a few times, and we pick up the phone, and he's saying, hey, we're surrounded. It looks like they're coming here to kill us. And a lot of credit has to go to David Fry here. The statist media loves to make fun of him because, obviously he was distressed yesterday. Wouldn't you be distressed if your friend had been killed and then you're surrounded by his murderers for weeks, camping out in the cold, trying to hold the line, keep the message going? So ask yourself that. But David Fry was really smart because he got a phone working, he got the call out. And that changed the message. The FBI was there lurking, as usual, under cover of darkness, trying to do their dirty deeds, and we shined light on that by getting the message out. And so look, there was no big planning, there was no political groups behind this. I wasn't working for anybody, and I wasn't their communications guy. I'm not a tech guy. I'm just a communicator. And so when the call came in, the first thing I did is I just started recording the audio. I thought, well, if something goes down, we at least need evidence of it. I said, all right, David, keep the call going, and I'm going to start recording. And so first I just started recording on the computer, and I just started Audio Hijack on my Mac, although there's programs on any computer you can get for this, or you can have a handheld recorder. I mean, really, this was not rocket science. We didn't have a fancy setup in here. I just have some basic equipment, and I know how to use it. And we should all do that. We should always have a camera with us. We should always have a way to record audio or video. We should know how to get it out there. We need to know, all of us, how to be the media. And so what happened was, after a couple minutes, I thought, well, this needs to get out. People need to hear this, and maybe that will put pressure to stop this. And so I just went to my YouTube channel and started a live stream, and I literally just took a webcam down here on the counter, and I set the phone there and put it on speakerphone, and that's what you were hearing all throughout that night and the next morning as calls were coming in and we were patching people in. And so within an hour here, this place was a buzz. My whole family showed up and people were taking calls and notes in the background. One of the first things we did is let some legislators know. Just, hey, this is what's going on. And pretty soon we had Michelle Fiore call. And so we got her on the line, and some legislators were working in the background trying to make some progress and make contact with people. And she was talking, and so the word started getting out. Now, in the large sense, I would give far more credit, though, to the people listening and get the word out. Because we got to 50, 60,000 people, not to mention that it was being rebroadcast on mainstream media. And so we had probably well over 100,000, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people listening live to what was going on down there, hearing the FBI in the background harassing these patriots, trying to get them to do something aggressive. And they stayed calm, they stayed principled. Yeah, they were worked up. Yeah, they were upset. Sure, there was shouting. But the real aggressors here were unquestionably the FBI. And so once we had that audience, then it was like, well, let's put pressure on them. And that's when we started putting out the FBI phone numbers, and the deeds they were trying to do in darkness were suddenly exposed to the eyes of the world. And that always changes the story when you're dealing with these corrupt people, because they want to control the narrative, and suddenly the narrative was in front of everyone and they weren't controlling it anymore. And so we had people working in the background, and we had legislators, and then on day 2, we had the same thing going on, and more legislators down there on the ground. And let's give credit to the legislators, because they do have the ability, they have some political position, and they can work from that perspective better than each of us can individually. And let's also give credit, though, especially to all the people out there making phone calls and sharing. I mean, sometimes it's the simple things. And so that's kind of what happened. That's how it happened. And as it ended last night and yesterday morning, and things got really stressful, I mean, let's make no mistake, but you can look at the names being called, and people are pointing the finger at me, or they're pointing the finger at KrisAnne Hall and saying, well, you guys weren't professional negotiators and you almost caused violence. I'm just going to shut that down right now. KrisAnne Hall was speaking the truth. She was getting it out there. She was talking to David. I was talking to David. We had Reverend Graham on the ground and Michelle back there working on the ground. So there was a lot of eyes on them once again. There was more accountability. Now there was all these people watching. And so the FBI is trying to spin this like, oh, we de-escalated it. We negotiated with David and got him off. No, these were the same FBI who murdered Lavoy Finicum. These were the same FBI who were trying to incite these people, the night before. These are the same criminals we've been dealing with all along, and they get zero credit. They've been the enemy in this all along because they've been committing treason. But the people's voice still has an effect, as bad as it's gotten. When people stand up, it makes a difference. And so, at the very end there, what really happened at the very end there, and hopefully we can hear more about this from Michelle and things like that, because after that line went dead, they can tell us, well, what happened on the ground there. But the word is that actually David's friends who had gone out, they were on the phone with him there at the very end when things were looking pretty dark, and they were talking to him. It wasn't the FBI that fixed things. And so the big picture on this is that what we need to rely on is not political groups or organizations or coalitions. We all need to work together. We all need to unite. But oftentimes these political groups, they're so day late and a dollar short that they get there when the damage has already been done. And so while we work with them, at the same time, we need to make sure that we're all vigilant in getting the message out. Any one of you can do something similar to what just happened here. If you're prepared, you know how to use your equipment, your media, you know how to take a video, you know how to record audio. Just get the message out. You don't need a ton of followers. Something like this would have gone viral even if you had no followers and you just started posting it to pages because it was too important. And so what next? What next is we have to stand up. We have to be principled. We have to be righteous. And once again, I'm going to give the overarching credit to God for making this work. I mean, it was like a miracle that the phone line from down there actually stayed connected. Because without that, the message wouldn't have got out, without that call that David Fry put out. But what next? What next is we've got a long road ahead of us. But first of all, we need to not try to negotiate and give credit to the wicked. Let's not make a pretense that, we can work it out with the FBI and the federal government. These are the ones arresting our friends, making up false charges against people like the Bundys and all the patriots down there. And so what next? And I'm going to talk more about this in another video in terms of what we can do, but we can support our patriots. We can start opposing the false narrative, because believe me, there's going to be more false narratives now that they're in that refuge. They're probably going to go in there and start breaking things and then say the patriots did it. So we can refute the false narrative in one story and move on to the next. Refute the false narrative, spread the message, share the message. But we can also all individually be the media. Learn to sit in front of a camera and just talk like this. Articulate your message. Share things on the internet. Know how to use a camera and always have one with you, so at the very least you can record what's happening. Have your YouTube channel or your Twitter or your Facebook, and don't rely on any one of those things, because we know places like Facebook shut us down all the time. But use whatever tools you can. be they radios or cell phones or internet. And you don't have to make yourself a master tech guy. Just have the ability to get the message out. And don't rely on other people to do it. Don't rely on your political groups or your politicians to get the message out. We, the people, must start being the media and carrying the principled message of liberty to the world so that we can educate, so that we can show that principle and that standard. And so that's what happened. That's how it happened. And that's a little bit about what next. And we'll talk about this more very soon.